like to call to order this meeting of the Middletown Township Board of Supervisors. Please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Ms. Corporal, would you please call roll? You don't have to. You just got to speak.
Mr. Cusack?
Here.
Ms. Payne?
Here.
Ms. Hannah?
Here.
Ms. Kane?
Here.
We also have in attendance tonight our Township Manager, Ms. Tori Pools. Sorry. Township Solicitor, Mr. Esposito, and the Township Engineer, Mr. Kessler.
Thank you, Ms. Corporal. A couple announcements and special items. First, the next Board of Supervisors meeting will be Monday, August 15th, 2022, 7 p.m. We will be back in the public hall at the Township Building for that meeting. And two upcoming events. The first is our movie in the park. This year it will be Pixar's Luca, and that will be Thursday, July 28th, 6:45, with the movie to begin at dusk, and that is in Community Park. And the second event is our National Night Out that we do every year, and that'll be Tuesday, August 2nd, 2022, from 6 to 9 p.m. in the parking lot of the Municipal Center. So please try to come out for both of those events, Movie in the Park on July 28th and National Night Out on August 2nd. Next, under special items, we have a proclamation designating July as Disability Pride Month, and for that, I will hand it off to Supervisor Payne.
I just want to give before reading the proclamation, a special mention to our Human Relations Council. They're the ones that brought this proclamation to us, and we are happy to declare the month of May as Disability Pride Month while working with them and in their honor. So whereas Americans with a Disability Act, or the ADA, was passed on July 26, 1990 to prohibit discrimination against people with disabilities and ensure the rights of citizens with disabilities, and whereas Disability Pride Month is celebrated nationally during the month of July to recognize the anniversary of the passage of this important legislation, and whereas the Township of Middletown recognizes one of the greatest strengths is the diversity of its people, and whereas disabled individuals contribute to our community's success and strength in an immeasurable number of ways, and whereas the Middletown Township Board of Supervisors created a Human Relations Commission in 2020 to express its commitment to diversity, equity, and inclusion, and our organization and our community. Now, therefore, be it proclaimed that July is designated as Disability Pride Month in Middletown Township, and we, the Middletown Township Board of Supervisors, encourage all people in our community to promote the elimination of discriminatory policies and practices towards any group of people.
Thank you, Ms. Payne. We do have one other special item that is not listed on the printed agenda, but which we felt was worth noting, and that is the recognition of our Township Manager, Stephanie Tioli-Cools, who has, for those that don't know, just had her 10th anniversary as our Township Manager. And we thought in recognizing this incredible accomplishment, it would be worthwhile for the benefit of the residents of this township to highlight some of Stephanie's accomplishments since she joined us in 2012. And I want to thank my fellow board members and also thank Assistant Township Manager Nick Valla for helping us compile this comprehensive list, but certainly this does not represent all of her accomplishments, but certainly some that we thought were worthy of highlighting. Stephanie's accomplishments in Middletown Township since she joined us in 2012 include the following: effectively managed our budget every fiscal year, led the township to receive nearly $10 million in grant funding during her tenure, helped improve the township's financial position to earn 2 consecutive AAA bond ratings and increase the township's rainy day fund by nearly 3 times, transitioned workers' compensation and medical insurances to the Delaware Valley Trust, resulting in stabilized insurance costs, which will yield millions of dollars in taxpayer savings in the long run, helped lead the township to become one of the few communities in the state to earn both the GFOA Financial Audit and Budget Awards, helped curbs expenses by $1.5 million to offset economic impact on the township during the height of the COVID-19 pandemic, advocated for numerous township contracts and services to be renegotiated, resulting in significant savings, helped lead the township to develop a 5-year capital improvement plan, implemented LED streetlight program in 2017, converting 4,756 streetlights to LEDs, resulting in an annual savings of approximately $60,000. Dramatically increased the township's investment in road repaving to $1 million each year, paving nearly 75 miles of township roads during her tenure. She oversaw the hiring of every department director and countless promotional opportunities. She successfully negotiated at least 2 collective bargaining agreements with each of the township's 4 unions and associations, worked with several college interns to teach them about the profession of municipal management, several of whom she has hired. She has consistently advocated for employees to be fairly compensated, especially female employees. She's built a partnership with the Oxford Valley Mall and worked to redevelop and enhance the property. She helped coordinate the township's response to the COVID-19 pandemic, including a community-wide recovery effort. She was named chair of the Delaware Valley Workers' Compensation Trust in 2022. She is an active board member of the Bucks County Transportation Management Association, the Bucks County Consortium of Communities, and the Middletown Community Foundation. She has significantly increased the sense of professionalism in the organization and in the township. And in addition to all of this, and while doing all this, she has battled 2 rounds of ovarian cancer. She has raised 2 sons and 2 stepsons, all of whom have graduated high school and have either graduated from or are currently in college. And it's really just an incredible, incredible list of accomplishments in 10 years. I can tell you as an elected official, we are often the ones that get a lot of the credit for the successes and the accomplishments of the township. But we all know that a tremendous amount of the credit really belongs to our township manager, Stephanie Tioli-Cools. And so we are indebted to her, and we thank her, and we just wanted to congratulate her and recognize her on 10 amazing years. So if everyone would please join me in a round of applause for Stephanie. And while they couldn't all be here, I did want you to know that I did hear from several of our past chairs who were aware of your anniversary, Amy Strauss, Tom Tosti, Pat Mallon, and they all expressed their congratulations and their thanks for everything you did for them while they were chairperson of the Board of Supervisors. So thank you again for everything, Stephanie. All right, moving on to public comment on non-agenda items. This is public comment on non-agenda items. Is there any public comment? Seeing none, we'll move on to the consent agenda items. Item A, consideration of authorizing payment of the July 18th, 2022 bills list in the amount of $3,115,600.52. Item B, consideration of approving the June 13th, 2022 minutes of the Middletown Township Board of Supervisors meeting. Item C, consideration of approving agreements of sale for right-of-way area and temporary construction easements with PennDOT for land along Langhorne Yardley Road intersection. Item is that it? That's it. Is there a motion on the consent agenda items?
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda items.
Thank you, Ms. Payne. Is there a second?
I'll second.
It's been a motion and a second. Are there any board questions? Are there any questions from the public? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Passes 5-0. Next on the agenda, consideration of the CFT Plaza Panda Express preliminary and final land development approval, 2029 Lincoln Highway, Langhorne, Pennsylvania, 19047, TMP 22-040-025-008S/LD number 21-06C zoning district. Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm John Von I'm an attorney with Eastburn and Gray in Doylestown. I'm representing CFT tonight. This is Valley from Clover Architects in Kansas City. They do most of the land development work and planning work for CFT around the country. We have a preliminary final plan tonight. I brought some visual aids since we don't have anything to project. I understand that you may have a small copy of these, so I put these on some boards today. The first of the 5 boards shows the location of this site in an aerial view. The property is 2029 Lincoln Highway, located in the C Commercial Zoning District. Those have been around for a while know it as the Speedway Diner property. It's just shy of 70,000 square feet. This is a proposal to redevelop that property into two restaurant pad sites. The second page, and this one will require a little bit of explanation, shows a Panda Express restaurant with a blank space. And let me explain how we came to have a blank on this plan. Last fall, or actually last summer in August, we had a Zoom meeting with the township staff where we went through all of the existing conditions on this property, identified a number of nonconformities, determined what variances would be required in order to move forward with two restaurants on this property. As a result of that, the determination was made not to try to subdivide the property, to keep it as one parcel. We then went to the zoning hearing board and obtained a series of variances, those being the variances that had been identified during that Zoom meeting in August. Submitted preliminary and final plans early in the winter, and we had two restaurants on there. Two restaurants that looked identical. They were identical. We put the footprints on there for Panda Express. The second pad site was a placeholder. It was reviewed by all the consultants as a plan for two restaurant pad sites. The understanding had been that we would come back if there was a change, and once a tenant was identified, if it required any modification to the final plan, we'd come back and amend the plan. Somehow Bucks County Planning Commission didn't get the message. So when Henry Clover came into the Planning Commission meeting, the same day a review letter had been arrived from Bucks County Planning Commission reviewing the plan as if it was only a plan for one restaurant. And I wasn't at the Planning Commission meeting, but apparently it engendered quite a bit of confusion at the Planning Commission. They were unsure of how to recommend a plan for a restaurant that they hadn't seen. And so Mr. Clover suggested that they make the motion to approve it as if it was going to be a phased plan, and we would come back with a full land development submission for the second pad site. That's the nature of the Planning Commission recommendation. For that reason, the plan has a blank space, which will be green space unless and until the second pad site is rented. The zoning hearing board did, however, approve two drive-through restaurants on the site. There was an original decision. Well, the original decision is the only decision. It was somewhat ambiguous, and there is a letter from the zoning hearing board solicitor, which I believe is in the township files, that confirms that the zoning hearing board approval was for two drive-through restaurants on the property. So we're here tonight asking you for preliminary final for the plan with the blank space on it for the second pad site, which will be the subject of a further land development plan submission when the tenant is obviously finally located.
So it is still the intention to lease that.
Oh,
to
absolutely,
another.
absolutely. No question about that. No change in the intent at all. It was just that it would have taken an extra 2 months probably to go back to the Planning Commission. We had to go back to Bucks County Planning Commission, get a second review. Then we would have to go back to the Planning Commission, come back to you. It's taken longer than Panda is used to dealing with to get this site going. They have some pressure on with the seller to close on the property, so they decided this made the most sense under the circumstances. However, the stormwater management system, all those improvements have been designed for the full build out of this site.
And so assuming approval is granted and the deal closes, is the intention to move forward with construction of the Panda Express?
Yes, and all the
Not waiting for the next.
not waiting for it. All the infrastructure for the full development of the site will be done. The stormwater management, everything has been sized for full build out.
Understood.
All right. The third sheet and the fourth sheet are the elevations of the four sides of the building. If you've seen Panda Express before, it probably looks familiar. And the fifth side is I'll call it a colored rendering of the main entrance on the property. Earlier today, I received a copy of a July 14th memorandum from Mr. Kessler to the Board of Supervisors. We have reviewed the recommendation. It is, of course, consistent with the Planning Commission recommendation. Just a word about the two waivers, although the waivers are described by Mr. Kessler. These waivers are necessary even though the determination was made by staff that the two conditions that they described are existing non-conforming zoning conditions. But because there are also conditions in these subdivision land development ordinance, we're asking for the waivers so that we can match the zoning that exists on the development that already exists on the property. In other words, it's existing conditions for which we're asking for the waivers. In all other respects, the recommended motion is acceptable in all respects to the applicant. We're happy, Mr. Lee and I, are happy to go through any review comments you have if you have any questions, but we've pretty much gone through several rounds of plan revisions here, and I think it's in pretty good condition.
Thank you. Are there any questions for Mr. Van Lippany?
Do we know what the second restaurant?
No, and that was the issue of the planning commission. That's why they said, well, we're reluctant granting approval for a plan that shows a building that may not be the building that's built. And so that's the reason the decision was made in front of the planning commission to take the recommendation to leave the second pad site blank and submit other full land development plans again when the second restaurant's identified.
And the second restaurant, will that definitely be a drive-through, or could it potentially be?
It
a
will
sit-down?
definitely be a drive-through. And it fits on the plan. The review letters from the township staff and township engineer all reviewed it with two drive-throughs on there. But we've taken the second one off. As far as we know, and as far as CFT is concerned, it will very, very likely have a drive-through. That's pretty much become standard in the post-COVID, or actually in the COVID era, I should say. A little premature to call it post.
It's just
Unfortunately true.
unfortunate to be losing a family sit-down restaurant. So I didn't know if there was a way, if there was any intention to having a similar family-style sit-down restaurant to be that second site.
Well, right now, it's going to be a drive-through regardless of what type of restaurant it is. That's the thing. Yeah.
Just for orientation purposes, so when we're looking at that diagram, the main entrance to the restaurant, Lincoln Highway.
Elevations, that's be the west elevation.
The long elevation is going to be facing west. The short elevation will be
Facing the road.
Facing the roadway. Got it.
Mhm.
Okay. And the drive-through will be
East
on the
side,
east side,
east side,
and vehicles go around the back.
right. Mhm.
Can I ask a question about the second site? If it's going to be a drive-through on that site, where would the drive-through line be on that site?
That's also on the right-hand side. Yep. Both drive-throughs will be oriented on the east side of the buildings.
we had planned layout for the second drive-through to mirror the Panda Express, but that just depends on the future tenant. That
But that's how it was designed, and that's how it was initially reviewed.
What is the landscaping plan for what's the landscaping plan for this? Any greenery, any type of landscaping to
Yes,
be done?
we meet all ordinances that is required of us in terms of landscaping, trees, foundation, plantings, all that.
And the complete plan package did have a landscape plan, which has been reviewed.
And walkability wise, will there be a sidewalk along Old Lincoln Highway?
Yes, that was one of the comments brought up, and we had added a sidewalk.
And is traffic only exiting on Lincoln Highway?
Yes, yes.
There is a rear curb cut now that isn't being utilized for the current restaurant, but we plan to open that up. So
But-
there will be outlet on the rear.
There's an easement that exists for the benefit of several properties along Lincoln Highway that takes access out to Woodburn Road. And that would be theoretically available if necessary. It certainly provide an emergency access if it wasn't used frequently, let's put it that way. But it is going to remain open, and there have been discussions with the adjacent property owners, but it encumbers all the properties. So there's no question about that. It's a private easement right.
And is there a left-hand turn from Old Lincoln Highway into this site currently?
don't believe so.
Okay.
I think it's just a write-in.
Right now, the application is before PennDOT. We need a PennDOT highway occupancy permit because we're doing slight modifications and there's a change of use. So that has to be issued, and whatever PennDOT requires, we'll have to do.
Okay. All right. Because I could see that being an issue with
Sure.
traffic on Lincoln Highway and the turn
Right.
in, the left turn in.
Mr. Kessler, no objection to the two waivers requested. What's the construction timeline typically?
Well, pre-COVID, it was about 120 days. Currently, it's taking about 220 days.
Any other questions?
I'm sorry. On the layout here, you said there was an easement in the back there. Could you show me on there
Sure.
and describe for me what that access does look like?
That the Acura dealership is not utilizing. So the access grants this property access to this rear road to connect to Woodbourne.
So that's the emergency access
Correct. Yes.
highway in there.
It's been in existence for 40, 50 years.
Because that road connects to that shopping center on Woodburn Road. It sounds like facing it.
Right.
Any other questions from any board members? If not, I can accept a motion.
I'll make a motion to grant preliminary final land development approval for CFT Plaza, Panda Express 2029 Lincoln Plaza, CLD number 2106 with the following conditions. Number one, applicant should apply in full with all requirements of the Middletown Township subdivision and land development ordinance and Middletown Township zoning ordinance, unless relief was granted of the body having jurisdiction. Number two, all comments still outstanding in review letters shall be fully addressed for plans to be considered final. Number three, proposed construction involving the second restaurant building will go through an additional land development approval process involving the Planning Commission and Board of Supervisors at a later time.
Thank you, Ms. Corporal. Is there a second?
I'll second.
There's been a motion and a second. Are there any additional board questions at this time? Are there any questions or comments from the public?
Does that sidewalk connect to an existing sidewalk? I heard there's a sidewalk. Is it going to connect?
There is no existing sidewalk.
We're building a sidewalk to nowhere to encourage people to walk at a two-lane driving.
I think the idea is in the future and future development, we want to start having sidewalks, so we need to start now with new businesses coming in. Is that correct?
As Mr. Lee said, that was not on the plan initially. We were requested to put it on.
Any other questions or comments from the public? Seeing none, there's been a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Passes 5-0. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Next on the agenda, consideration of authorizing a contract for implicit bias training for township volunteers, appointed and elected officials. Mr. Nichols?
Yes, in early 2022, the Human Relations Commission came to the board of supervisors and recommended that we consider this training. We do bias training for all of our employees, and the HRC asked the board to consider doing this for all elected and appointed officials and volunteers. So what's before you this evening is a proposal, DNG Consulting, Dr. Danielle Gadsden is a professor at Villanova, and she has a consulting firm and has put together a team of 3 experts. They have varying experiences. They'll lead this session. It will be both in person and online, so it will be hybrid. With the board's agreement, if you go forward with this tonight, we will reach out to all of our elected, appointed officials and volunteers. Volunteers in the Township Water Board Commission. It's proposed that this 90-minute session will be on September 22nd, from 6:30 to 8 p.m. The cost is $2,299.
Sorry about that. The last time it had some terrible feedback. I don't know if you need me to start over. Implicit bias training for.
We all heard you.
Okay, great. Well, for the folks at home. So the last thing I was going to say is the HRC has seen the proposal and supports the proposal and encourages the board to move forward with their recommendation.
Thank you. Are there any questions or comments for Ms. Teoli-Cools from the board? If not, I can accept the motion.
I'll move to approve a contract with DNG Consulting in the amount of $2,235.
Thank you, Ms. Payne. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Ms. Hannah. There's been a motion and a second. Are there any board questions at this time? Are there any questions or comments from the public?
Anytime you appoint someone to a board, he or she is gonna go through this training, and that won't be $2,000 a pop, will it?
So
Well,
that's a good question.
it
So
is- it
it's a
is.
one-time deal at this
Right.
point. It's a one-time training, which will be on September 22nd for all current board and commission members and elected officials. I guess we would have to cross that bridge. Certainly, it's not going to be a $2,000 training every time somebody new is appointed. Maybe it's an annual thing or something like that. I'm not sure.
Is this
I
something with
think it's a
video?
I think it's a very good question in that I'm sure that we can come up with something for new board members, whether they watch this session, if we record it, as Ms. Corporal just mentioned, or if we have some type of online module. So this is intended to be a one-time. Maybe you would repeat this in 3 to 5 years. You wouldn't be doing this every year.
But you said it was a good question, and you said it was a good question, I'll sit down. I think if it's a valuable point, we ought to really, because of recent past history, figure out some way that tomorrow's volunteer is also exposed to the training, or not.
And I do know that, coming from the private sector, I have implicit bias training. I'm required from my company to do it. So it could be something where if we appoint someone new that has had it in training, not through the township, but throughout it, we might be able to have that type of requirement,
Wave or
a
something.
waived
Yeah.
requirement or something along those lines. But I think it's definitely something we need to consider and think through, maybe recording this and have that available for new going forward and rethink about it in a couple of years.
So I guess the short answer is tonight's motion is to approve a one-time expenditure for the presentation for current board and commission members. And we'll have to figure out moving forward what the plan is for new board and commission members as they are appointed. But certainly a good point, a good question. Any other questions or comments from the public? Seeing none, there's been a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Passes 5-0. Next on the agenda, consideration of authorizing the preparation and advertisement of bid phase 1A of the Department of Public Works yard improvements. Mr. Kessler.
Thank you, Chairman Kechek. About a year ago, we came before you with a description of the phased approach we are looking for improving the efficiency of the Department of Public Works yard. It's a lot of aged buildings and infrastructure at the yard there. And what we've done since that time has been the design of phase 1, which, if you recall, is the replacement of the fuel system. The aged underground tanks are being removed. New tanks and fueling pumps are being installed, as well as a bit of relocation to improve the circulation of the yard. That part of the project is out to bid. We're looking forward to receiving bids later this month. To follow that is phase 1A, which is before you tonight. And our request is to authorize the bidding process and preparing the bid package for phase 1A. And phase 1A is focused on the winter operations. The current salt shed doesn't even allow the salt truck to back in completely and dump the salt in the shed itself. Requires the public works staff to coordinate and move the salt in and out of the actual shed from the yard, as well as the brine tank is on the opposite side of the yard, next to the old building compared to the salt shed. So while a storm is happening and the township staff is hustling around to make sure everything is taken care of, they also have to really coordinate and move around a lot in the yard itself. So phase 1A is focusing on really making that a much better operation. We've been working with Eric Gartenmeyer and the staff to focus in on what exactly fits the yard for what we have in Middletown. Focus on what kind of salt shed would be the right structure and how it would be set up to house some vehicles in the winter, as well as allow that circulation to be a lot better, allow the truck to come in and dump the salt and so forth. So phase 1A is going to replace that salt shed with a new modern facility for the winter operations. It also is going to improve some environmental aspects of the yard. Like I mentioned, it's not going to require the salt to be dumped in the yard in the winter, so that's already an improvement. It's also going to replace that old brine tank, which is a temporary tank that's been there for a couple of decades. So that'll be replaced with a modern brine tank where they can do that, as well as the salt kind of in a centralized area of the yard. It will also redo some of the fencing in that portion of the yard, which will set up the yard for some future phases that are hopefully planned, to continue to improve some of the other older buildings there. So with your packets, there's a couple of images included. There is a image of a similar salt shed. It won't be exactly this, because the one that will be built for the yard will really be custom for the truck movements for Middletown, but a similar kind of approach, a big, large open area in the front, more of a square structure compared to the one there now, which is kind of the round one. It doesn't have as much volume to store in there. And it also will allow that brine facility to kind of be set up next to it. So I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have. But tonight we're just looking to authorize that bidding phase. And once it's put together and bid out, we'd come back before you with any kind of pricing that would come in for this phase 1A.
What is the timing for how long these improvements would take once it comes through?
No, it's a great question. And the reason we're before you tonight for authorization to bid is that the aim is to have this bid package out this fall, so that right after this winter, once the salt use is done for the township come spring, they could tear down the old salt shed and start putting this together before next winter would come. So we're looking at a 2023 construction. That would kind of come right on the heels of the fuel system phase 1 that would be done around the start of this one. And that sequence has been kind of laid out entirely for all the yard improvements that we're looking to do.
Any other questions for Mr. Kessler or Mr. Gartenmeyer, if anybody has questions for him? Wasn't sure you were here, Eric. Yeah.
Remind me again, this is phase 1A. What would come after this?
Then we go to 2. So we had 1A. There's no 1B. This one being attached with the fueling was got the A with it, but it's 2 would be looking into the older building that's currently
There you
the truck phase. So,
you'd
there's 5 altogether.
Okay. So you'd be looking. The next phase is getting rid of the older building. Okay.
That's the idea. Yes.
And what's budgeted today for 1A?
What we have, at least in the projected budget for going into next year, was $1 million. So there was $1 million this year's budget and $1 million slated hopefully for next year and actually the following year as well.
I'm not sure if you can answer or if Eric, if you can answer. Why is centralizing in the salt shed and everything, the winter operation, how's that going to benefit our residents? I know, but I'd just like for you to share, if you could. 'Cause I think we've all been in the yard and we've been there and can see the operations, and it's amazing what you do. But I think if people knew how it would benefit them.
So basically, what we have now is, we make do with what we have. Right? It's been there for years. Isaac and myself have went back and forth with came up with countless ideas. So the benefit is, first of all, we have the stream right behind our shop. Every time a truck comes in, we have to dump it out in the yard. We have to take the loader, pick it up, put it in a storage bin. So that's number one problem. When it's raining or snowing, all the salt's getting wet. Loading of the trucks has to be done outside, which you get spillover every time you load a truck if this happens. So you're dumping more salt on the ground now. So that's another reason. With the way we have it set up is the trucks, first of all, the salt will be delivered and put inside. They can back right in and it will be delivered inside the building. No more dumping outside and things like that. The other thing is that our trucks would get loaded inside. So all the salt's contained in one area. We don't have the environmental, to deal with so much. And it will speed up because now every time the truck comes in, we sort of do like a U shape. So you're backing in and out of that pole barn or whatever you want to call it, storage shed. So you're backing up and in and out where you'll be inside that new building and you scoop it, turn one time, you load the truck. So it will increase that. On the brine operation, so it was a temporary thing that never got moved, and I'm going back probably 8 years now. So on the side of the building, there's a brine machine inside the building, which what brine does to metal, it corrodes everything. So, but it's been there. So that operation, you need to take the salt all the way from over this side of the yard, out of the salt pile, drive it through the yard, all the way down to the end bay, and then make the brine. So that's another hassle with that. And you lose salt on the way and everything else. It's going to speed up the loading time. It's going to make the yard safer, first of all, because we don't have trucks backing up, backing in, loader backing in and out. And just the salt in the yard. If you go down there when it rains, you'll still see the salt, like even now, from over the winters.
So
To
less wear and tear on the vehicles and things like that.
Yeah, and it's going to be a lot safer. That's the main thing. So Isaac didn't explain the whole thing, but so this building, you would drive in one side, you get loaded up, and you drive through the other side of kind of like the building, and you're gone. So the trucks aren't fighting it with each other and things of that nature.
Thank you.
Anything else?
So it's safer, it's cleaner, you're wasting less salt, and you're saving a ton of time for getting people back on the road,
Yeah.
salting roads. Yeah. Any other questions from the board? Then I will make a motion to authorize the preparation and advertisement to bid Phase 1A of the Department of Public Works yard improvements. Is there a second?
I'll second.
It's been a motion and a second. Are there any other board questions? Any questions or comments from the public? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Passes 5-0. Thank you, Mr. Kessler. Thank you, Mr. Gartenmeyer.
you.
Next on the agenda, I think Mr. Kessler again, consideration of authorizing award of the 2022 Middletown Township Community Development Block Grant Curb Ramp Replacement Program to NJS Concrete LLC for a total amount of $209,655.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, as you mentioned, the ramp program for this year is heavily funded by a CDBG grant that we received. And with the bids that we received, we had 3 total bids ranging in price from $127,625 all the way to $207,775 for the base bid work. The alternate that's included includes some crosswalk striping and some signage to go along with the curb ramps. So we did review the low bidder that came in, but unfortunately they had incomplete paperwork, some signatures and items missing that are required for the bid package. They also didn't fully comply with our responsible contractors ordinance. And with that, working with the staff, it was determined that the low bidder with their price was not acceptable. They weren't qualified. So the next lowest bidder is NJS Concrete, and they had all their documents in order, all their requirements submitted to us, and that is the recommendation before you this evening for the second low bidder, and also to award both the base bid and that alternate with the striping. So their total cost for that is $209,655, and as mentioned, a good portion of that is the grant we received for the CDBG funding, which is federal funding designed to help with these types of projects.
What year are we in of the curb replacement program? How many years have we been doing this?
Altogether,
Yeah,
to defer to Stephanie on that,
yeah.
at least, yeah.
And can you just quickly just sort of run through what locations are included in the base bid and which locations were included in the alternate?
Well, the base bid is all the curb ramp locations themselves. It includes the area focused in Cobalt Ridge, including some areas around the school there and the new playground that just got installed. And that's really the focus of this year's program is that neighborhood. Going forward, we're looking at trying to almost have a plan of future years of different neighborhoods that still need some attention for the ramps. The alternate bid is the striping and some signage that would go with, if there's I think 3 locations that are curb ramps not right on the corners, so they would have some signage to let folks know that there might be some people crossing there.
Thank you. Any other questions for Mr. Kessler?
The difference between that base bid, the low bid and the high bid is extreme. Do we know where the market is and if, NJS is aligned with the market?
That's a good question. And the bid of NJS, who's the second lowest bidder, and the third bidder was very close. They were within a few $1,000s of each other. As you mentioned, the low bid, LB Construction, was a fair amount lower. We've seen bids like these in other towns come in as well. We've also seen LB come in extremely low and not qualify in other spots as well. So the more accurate average price is the NJS Concrete range and the other bidder that we saw. That low one, as much as we were hoping that they qualified with everything they had, it didn't qualify, and the pricing needed to be passed on.
Any other questions? If not, I'll accept the motion. I'll move to consider authorizing the award of the 2022 Middletown Township Community Development Block Grant Curb Replacement Program to NJS Concrete LLC for a total amount of $209,655. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Ms. Payne. There's been a motion and a second. Are there any additional board questions? Are there any questions or comments from the public? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 5-0. Next on the agenda, consideration of awarding the 2022-2023 Fuel Consortium contract to Petroleum Traders Corp. of Fort Wayne, Indiana for unleaded gasoline, Riggins Inc. of Cumberland, New Jersey for heating fuel, and Riggins Inc. of Cumberland, New Jersey for low sulfur diesel. Mr. Gartenmeyer.
Good evening, Board. Once again, every year we participate in the consortium bid. It's around that time of year again. We sent out what we think we're going to use for the year. What you have in front of you is the estimate on how much fuel based on what we did the previous year. I will tell you that with the gas prices in the market, it fluctuates. So, this is a little bit over what we've done in the years past. And I wanted to give you like a kind of true figure, not hit you blindsided with a short number. So I'm hoping the gas prices are coming down. So we get an OPIS and it's a sliding scale of the market value and everything, and that's when it goes by. So when we did it that day, when I did this report, we looked at it, and that's the figures that we came out with that day. So it will fluctuate back and forth.
Explain to me a little bit more what it means to be in the fuel consortium. So are we getting a
Sure.
set rate? Are we getting like you said, a range of rates based on where the market is?
So what happens is there's carriers, all different carriers. So what happens is us and probably 15, 20 other municipalities, we all have to fill out our paperwork and say, we want a home heating fuel, diesel, gas. So that all goes in, and then they take it, and I don't know what the average, how many gallons it is or whatever.
Mhm.
So then, they're saying that basically we were going to use this much product, and that's from us. That's from Northampton. That's from Bensound, wherever. So they bid on it. There's probably about 20 different bidders, I would think, that I've seen. Some don't qualify, some don't bid on it. So that basis is on the trucks who deliver that percentage that they get. And then the market, we're in the Philadelphia market, so that OPIS, it gets set like every day.
Okay.
So that's how it fluctuates.
Gotcha.
If that helps you. I don't know if I
Yep. Yeah.
kind of-
It does. Thank you.
Any other questions?
Does being part of the consortium give us better buying power?
Yes. Yes, we do that for the salt. We do it for the fuel. We do it for road material, for stone bids. A lot of things we are part of. If I go and say, "Hey, I need this fuel," and this is, I could get some kind of crazy price. But with all the townships, even with the salt and everything, so we do get a cheaper price by being part of the consortium. And it's the Bucks County Consortium is one it is.
I'm assuming this is one that we've used.
We've done this for, and it's kind of funny because like riggings that don't get, like last year they didn't get, say, the gas, but this year they got gas, and somebody out like it was flip flops.
So it changes back and
Yeah,
forth. Okay.
it's Paco or one of the other ones, but these are the ones that had the lowest numbers at the time when we did this, and it was recommended from the consortium that these are the vendors we go with. So,
Any other questions?
No.
Motion?
Go ahead.
I move to award the 2022-2023 Fuel Consortium contract to Petroleum Traders Corp. Of Fort Wayne, Indiana for unleaded gasoline with an estimated amount of $260,000. Rig and Zinc of Cumberland, New Jersey for heating fuel with an estimated amount of $18,000 on an as needed basis, and Rig and Zinc of Cumberland, New Jersey for low sulfur diesel with an estimated amount of $63,000.
I'll second.
Thank you, Ms. Kane and Ms. Corporal. There's been a motion and a second. Are there any other board questions? Are there any questions from the public? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 5-0. Thank you, Mr. Gartmeyer. Next on the agenda, don't go anywhere, right?
just waiting.
Consideration of authorizing the purchase of two John Deere Z950M Z-Track equipped with quick shoot grass blocker, 60-inch side discharge mower deck, and fully adjustable suspension seat with armrests for a total of $24,391.50.
Okay, so this is our lawn equipment that gets used almost every day, except when there's bad weather. I have two zero turns that are club cadets, which are around 15 years old. So they kind of met their time, to say the least. So yeah, the zero turns cut the smaller spots, like over here, the township building. So the tractor doesn't have to go all the way out. Basically used for, they're running, so it gets a lot of time on them. Um, we do have Exmark mowers. However, I looked at the John Deere, and there's a difference, believe it or not, of over $7,000 between the equipment. When it was bidded out the first time, when I got the quote, it was close. When I followed up to make sure that all the numbers were good, when I got the quote back, I was kind of shocked. But that's the market I guess we're in today, and so I would like to try the John Deere's. It's, like you said, over $7,000 savings. They're not bad equipment. We checked into them. Usually the school district, the bridge commission, the county will use John Deere. That's where you usually see them. But we were willing to try this, and I don't think we're going to have a problem with it. It's a new type of mower for us. It's just a different brand. It does the same job as the other ones would do. So I would say that, my recommendation is to go with the John Deere mowers. And it was put in the budget last year. There was $35,000 put in the budget last year to buy the mowers. So we were under the 35, obviously.
Do they have the same life expectancy, the 15 years?
It depends. I can't get into that, but I'll have this little sidebar with you later. I'll just say we had to buy equipment at one point when other directors were here, and some of the equipment wasn't the best all the time. But that's what we had to deal with, and the situation with the township with money or whatever. So these mowers probably should have been gone 4 or 5 years ago. Tommy Scott would patch them back up, and but they're done.
But the new mowers
But the
that
new
you're
mowers.
getting, what is the life expectancy?
I would say 10, 15 years, somewhere in there. So,
Any other questions? If not, I can accept the motion.
I move to authorize the purchase of 2 John Deere Lee 950MD track equipped with quick shoot grass blocker, 60 side discharge mower tech, and fully adjustable suspension seat with armrests from Deere and Company of Cary, North Carolina, for a total of $24,391.50.
Thank you, Ms. Payne. Is there a second?
Second.
all in one breath.
Thank you. There's been a motion and a second. Any other board questions? Any questions from the public? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Passes 5-0. Thank you, Mr.
Thank you
Gilmore.
very much.
Next on the agenda, consideration of authorizing the purchase of a special use vehicle storage building for the police department for a total of $21,715. Chief Byerell.
Good evening, Mr. Kizak, fellow board members. This is a purchase we originally budgeted for in 2020. Like several of our capital purchases, we deferred it into the following year. We had budgeted $20,000 for it originally. We were going to purchase it last year, and then building materials skyrocketed in price. So we were getting quotes in the mid-30s, and we couldn't even guarantee that quote would be valid by the time we got to a board meeting and got it approved. So we kind of took a sit and wait approach, and finally the prices they went down and kind of stabilized. So we did get 3 excellent bids, all from fairly local companies, all between $21,700 and $23,800. We have needed this storage unit for quite some time. We're going to use it to store the motors, the ATVs, the bicycles, and get them out of our evidence garage so we could use our evidence garage for evidence. So, board has questions? I can answer.
Any questions for the chief? If not, is there a motion?
I'll make a motion I move to authorize the purchase of a special use vehicle storage building from Elite Structures for $21,715.
Thank you, Ms. Payne. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Ms. Corporal. There's been a motion and a second. Any board questions? Any questions from the public? Yes, sir.
Literally the way you said it was like, we just have it in our evidence locker, so it just taking up space.
Yeah, the problem is we don't have switches. So the evidence garage is supposed to be used only for evidence.
Oh, I get that. I'm just saying the way you said it is like, oh, we just never use this stuff here, and it's taking up space.
I'll try to sound more enthusiastic.
Well,
We do use our motors for traffic enforcement. We do use our ATVs for ATV enforcement all the time. We go out on details on them. Bicycles we use during the summer. So
I'm just,
It is very cluttered in that garage.
I'm, that's fine. I'm just saying, it sounded like when I was selling to him, it didn't sound like you were using it at all. But after the state,
we buy it.
sorry.
Any other questions from the public? Seeing none, there's been a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Passes 5-0. Thanks, Chief. Next, we have our Q2 financial report from our Director of Finance, Ms. Bendari.
Good evening. It's on, right? Okay.
Yep.
I always have issues with this, don't I? All right. Good evening. As mentioned, I will be giving you a brief overview of our Q2 2022 revenue and expenses compared to our budget and compared to Q2 2021. A brief overview of our investment fund and a brief overview of our employee pension plans. So if you turn to the next page. So we're right on target to budget overall, and we're actually doing extremely well in our actuals this year compared to our to last year. We're currently at 64% of our revenue target and at about 34% of our expense target, which means our incoming revenue is already exceeding our expenditures, similar to Q1. Our Q2 22 actuals versus our Q2 2021 revenue actuals are coming in about 1.2 million better when you compare apples to apples. So we actually have not received our ARPA funding yet. So this is prior to getting that. If you actually consider the ARPA funding, we're going to be over 3 million better this year so far already. So really good revenue numbers coming in. Most of that is driven by our EIT, which actually is because of higher income levels year over year. Our transfer taxes because of the real estate transfer boom in general. And then just township services. Permits are up quite a bit. Inspections are up quite a bit, or going back to what it was prior to 2020. So I do want to give a shout out to our B&Z team today. They're just taking in so much more permits than we've had in the past. Construction's been crazy, and they're just really, doing a great job getting that in. Also wanted to give a shout out to our fire marshals team who are kickstarting the FSIs again. So we're seeing that revenue come in and actually higher than normal. So it's great to see that revenue coming back in. And then we're also seeing our Parks and Rec department numbers going up. They are already way above budget, and we're hoping to see more come in for our facility rentals and our programming. So kudos to them. And then as far as our expenses, we're actually at 35% versus the 37% we were at last year. So we're actually saving some on the expense side. Normally, if you actually look, we usually have our normal fixed cost increases in expenses year over year, but our team does a great job of just really trying to budget well and find the best prices around. So we're actually not utilizing as much of our expenses as you would assume already at this part of the year. All right. So next, I'm going to actually go over more of our funding, especially in the general fund and the capital fund, which are two main funds that we like to review. So again, going back to our general fund, we are at 52% of our budget and revenue and about 39% of our budget and expenditures. And this is where you would see the ARPA funding. So again, 1.3 million higher just in the general fund. And then with ARPA funding, we'd be over 3.7 million already at this point. We are going to see ARPA funding hopefully in the next few weeks, if not the next month. I actually reached out to them, and they're still working. Bucks County's still working on getting all of the details approved, and none of the townships around have received that yet. So I also checked in with other townships just to make sure. So we should be hopefully getting that soon.
Sorry, just for folks at home, can you explain what the ARPA funding is? Because I don't know.
Oh yeah, sure. It's the American Rescue Plan funding. that we received from the COVID pandemic that Bucks County and the federal government actually released out to all the states, and then it feeds down through the county level. So we did receive quite a bit of funding on that end. It's in total going to be about, I think it was like 2.4 million. So thank you. So as you can see, we're actually doing really well. Our higher revenue, like I mentioned before, was EIT, which is over $370,000 right now, higher than last year. $597,000 is all we're getting from real estate transfer taxes, and then about $333,000 just from our permits. So as I said, doing really well on that end. Our expenses, we are showing obviously a bit higher from our fixed costs like salary and wages that need to go up every year. But if you look at it in trend to last year and just in general of what trending should be for expenses, we're actually doing better than we expected budget-wise. If you turn to the next page, that's our capital fund overview. So far we've received about 7% of our revenues compared to budget, and have spent about 18% of our planned revenue. As I mentioned last quarter, most of this revenue is grant funding. There's no actual real fixed revenue source. So we tend to use grant funding if we can get it, and then we have to look at possibly a transfer from the general fund. We also rely on bond revenue if we receive that. As you guys can recall, in 2020, we had a bond refunding. So we do have some funding left from that we're going to be using this year for some of our projects to help with the cost. As I mentioned, our expenses are right on target. There's still some projects that we haven't started. There's a list here. I'm not going to go through every single one, but where you can see some of the main projects that we have started. And then, as we move on with the year, I'll bring up more on that end. On the next page, you're going to see our investments overview. No, probably big surprise here. Unfortunately, there has been, again, some loss. The loss isn't as significant as the previous quarters, but there is some loss just with the market value of the investments in general. Interest rates are going up, so we're hoping to see that stabilize, hopefully in the coming months. The one good thing is we are doing better than our benchmark. So that's good to see compared to a lot of personal portfolios that you might see out there. We're doing a little bit better on the investment side. Another great thing to see is that our Univest money market went up from 0.5% to 1.75% interest rate wise just over the quarter. So we're seeing that trend up, and in fact, it should probably be going up more as interest rates rise. I've also reached out to some banks on CDs again. That was something we looked at in the past and had in the past, and then interest rates went low. So I've reached out to some banks to see if there's any reason to go back to CDs with some of our investments at this time to help us get some of that funding back.
Now, this balance needs to stay above 40 million, correct?
Yes, it does.
And what do we usually get from an interest income on an annual basis?
Right. It just really depends on the interest rates. It is quite a bit usually, and usually we don't see a loss. We usually see a gain on investments, but this year, just with the market in general, it's been bad. Right. I think for this quarter, like it says, it was about almost 140,000 in interest revenue. It does offset some of that loss impact, but it's not enough at this point. Any other questions? All right. The last slide I have is the pension update, which is our employee pension plan that we have. Again, not same kind of news. Unfortunately, our non-uniform plan is at a negative 11.5%, and our uniform plan is at 10%. We do have our pension meeting tomorrow, so we'll get just a little bit more in depth, but similar to the investment side. We are doing better than our benchmark, which is good to hear, but we're hoping it stabilizes. I do also want to remind everyone that we did take out $1 million in the first quarter. It doesn't really do anything to this because it's a comparison of quarter to quarter, but I just wanted to note that because we did need to increase our cash balance for some retirements that came up. So yeah, that's really it, unless you guys have any questions.
Thank you, Ms. Bendar. Any questions?
No. on the pension side of things, the negative numbers, what does that mean? And are we going to have to take an action on that? Or will you find that out at the pension meeting?
So there's really not much we can do. It's
Right.
it's an investment plan. I mean, this is minus cash. This is just how our investments are doing. We do have cash separate from this.
Okay.
So and the cash is held in our bank account to pay for the monthly
So it's following the
returns.
market, basically.
Yeah.
And it's critical what Megan mentioned about the benchmark, right? That it's outperforming.
Right.
Yeah. So it's doing better than most personal plans are.
Any other questions? Thank you, Ms. Bendari.
Thank you.
Appreciate
Have
it.
a great night.
And that brings us to other business. Mr. Kessler. Mr. Esposito. Ms. Dioli-Cools.
Well, I want to thank you all for that crazy surprise. I was floored by that, hearing that list all together. I really just want to make sure everyone knows that there are a lot of people that go into that list that are lots more than me. But really, I just want to say thank you to the Middletown Township community, to the staff. I'm really honored to be in this job, and I am not planning on going anywhere anytime soon. Thanks for the flowers and the card. I am deeply appreciative.
Thank you. Ms. Hannah.
I wanted to say congratulations to Ms. Lee. I can't thank you enough personally for helping me to transition into this role. You never hesitate to answer any questions, any texts. You are very supportive, and you're a role model as a mother, as a leader in me, and Middletown, and I'm very grateful.
Thank you, Ms. Hannah. Ms. Payne.
I just also want to congratulate Ms. Dioli-Cools on 10 years here. 10 years is a long time just with any place that you work, and I know that the township is in better hands because you've been here for 10 years. I know I started 2020, and it's only 2022, but for me it feels like it's been 84 years with a pandemic and a health crisis. And I just want to thank you mostly for your friendship during that really tough time for me. You were able to share your personal experience, and that actually made it easier for me to go through. So, and I don't know, and I think that's worth mentioning because it's hard to find. And I just really want to thank you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for that. I don't know how to repay you, so thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Payne. Ms. Corbett.
Again, I said it before, congratulations on 10 years. I think we're all better for you being here. The township definitely is. And personally, I told you before that you've made it so easy to transition, and you're always answering my questions. I can text you at any time, and you're always right there with an answer or guiding me to where I need to go. So I really appreciate that. And I think that the whole township appreciates you being here. I hope you're here for many years to come.
Thank you, Ms. Corbett. Ms. Kane.
Again, I will thank you. This township is extremely lucky to have you. Not only are you incredible at managing our township, you have an extensive network that I was able to see when I went to the PSAC conference with you. Just to know how much information you probably are provided from other townships, and to be able to lean on the experiences that they have as well. We are extremely lucky to have you, and I am lucky to have you as a manager. It is very difficult coming in as the for lack of a better word, odd man out. So you have been an incredible mentor to me so far, and I think we are extremely lucky as a board. You keep us together, you keep us informed of everything that we need to be informed about.
Yeah. What else can be said? You're the best. I mean, seriously. We're doing it just to torture them. We're making them listen to it. But honestly, I think that to the residents who are here and the residents at home, to the extent they don't know, Stephanie is a true rock star in her field. I mean, she's a leader in this profession, and we are incredibly lucky and privileged to have her leading this township. And for us as elected officials, she just makes us look good. And so thank you for everything we've done and will continue to do. We all hope you're here for a really long time. Thank you. With that, I will accept a motion to adjourn.
I'll make
there a second?
Second?
We're adjourned.